Hey, well, good day and welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is person-centered care at the end of life, and we thank you for joining us. These complimentary webinars are brought to you through a collaboration of sponsorship with O'Connor Mortuary, Care Choices Hospice and Palliative Services, Caring Companions at Home, as well as Alzheimer's Orange County. And joining us today is our community partner, Hoag. My name is Kim Bailey, and I'm a gerontologist and a program and education specialist here at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I will be your moderator today. Our sponsors are providing these webinars to you as a service to our community on topics that are beneficial for anyone who cares for or works with older adults. And we certainly hope that you find today's presentation informative and useful. We have an incredible speaker today. She is Patty Mouton, and Patty Barnett Mouton serves as Vice President for Outreach and Advocacy at Alzheimer's Orange County, where she's been on staff since 2005. In January 2020, Patty also assumed responsibility for the Advanced Care Planning Education Program for the Hoag Hospital Palliative Care Department. Prior to 2005, Patty worked in hospice care for several years and held leadership positions with American Red Cross Blood Services and in business development with divisions of Johnson & Johnson. She has served as co-chair of the Orange County Pulse Coalition, now known as the OC Advanced Care Planning Partners, since 2010. She chairs the CalOptima One Care Connect Advisory Committee and has served on the board of the Sacred Dying Foundation. Patty currently serves on the Senior Citizens Advisory Council to the Orange County Board of Supervisors, is part of the Leadership Council for the Caring for the Whole Person Initiative at the Orange Catholic Diocese, and serves as chair of the Social Engagement Pillar / Heart-to-Heart Council of the Orange County Strategic Plan for Aging. Patty holds a BS in Human Services from Springfield College, graduate certificates in Fundamentals of Gerontology and Palliative Care Chaplaincy, and is currently a candidate for a Master's of Gerontology at Cal State Long Beach. She is a clinical post educator and is on the End of Life Nursing Education Consortium faculty. And I am so pleased to introduce my colleague and friend, Patty Mouton, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Patty. And we're looking forward very much to your presentation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. And a little known trivia is that Kim Bailey actually trained me as a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Orange County Speakers Bureau, probably in about the year 2000. So thanks for that, Kim. I do appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. And I'm really pleased that we're going to be addressing this topic about end-of-life care, especially in context of people with end-stage dementia. It's one of the hardest maladies to care for because oftentimes there's so little response from the person who's doing the dying. And in order to provide them a good death, a death that provides a really wonderful platform for expression of love for that person, for the family and loved ones, we have some work to do as caregivers. So I want to start off with a quote from Dr. Ira Byock, who's kind of our modern hospice guru in the United States. And Dr. Byock says there are 4 critically most important things that we need to be doing, not just when we're dying, but every day, but especially when we're dying. And in context of end-stage dementia, I think this is a task that we as caregivers have to facilitate for the person who's dying, but also for the people who will be left behind, the loved ones of that person. Because clearly, if someone is suffering from end-stage dementia, they probably can't walk through some of these steps. But Dr. Byock says, we need to say thank you. We need to say, I forgive you. Please forgive me, I love you. And then we're ready to say goodbye. So if we're facilitating this for the people who are dying, and we are facilitating this task for the loved ones to say to the person who's dying, no matter how responsive or unresponsive they might be, we go a long way toward creating an environment that will then allow for a really good death. Our objectives today are to identify 3 elements of person-centered care at end of life, to learn 3 techniques utilizing sensory connections that can improve comfort at the end of life, and to describe 3 common psychological or spiritual issues that individuals who are facing their last moments might be encountering. This is also a quote from Dr. Bioch. He addressed a national convention on dementia in 2007, and it has stayed with me since then. Alzheimer's disease glues up the elegant neurological network of the human brain. But if we focus on the tragedy, we miss the gifts. Even here, the experience of human life holds value. And I want you to hold on to this thought, because all too often we're faced with relatives and loved ones, and even sometimes professional caregivers who don't see the person dying from end-stage dementia as the person. And we hear things like, oh, she's just a shell, or oh, she doesn't even know I'm here. I believe with all my heart and soul that the person who's doing the dying is still with us until the moment that they're not. And while they can't articulate and communicate and connect the way we would seek to experience that, I still believe there's an awful lot of connection that's possible, even in the very most obtunded of patients. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can really do our very best to ensure that the person feels like we're connecting with them. No matter how long a person has been ill, many families are not prepared to be in this place where they're about to say goodbye. And even if they've been caregivers for 10 years or 15 years, it's still hard when they're facing the finality of impending death. And there's no typical way that people die. So we really want to help people understand that people do die the way they lived, even if they've been very cognitively impaired or ill. And we want to witness this journey. We want to be present for the journey. And a very important part of all of this is to model behaviors that the family can then start to join in on, to know how to behave and how to act. They will take their cues from you. So while dying is very unique and individual, there are some commonalities. And those of you that have worked in end-of-life care, I'm not going to be teaching you anything brand new. This isn't earth-shaking information. This is a reinforcement of much of what we know and a lot of our common sense if we're operating with a very compassionate heart. This is an experience that takes in the entire person, all the elements of the person's life. The physical, of course, their body is shutting down. Their body is making a break from this world. It's a personal kind of journey. Psychologically, if they have been a little more coherent, they are gently, but steadily breaking off from connections in this life. Sometimes they've withdrawn from any kind of conversation or social interaction with people. And hopefully they've had an opportunity to be in touch with the things for them that are most important and spiritual. No matter what you believe, I think that those of us who help people at this end of life moment, I think we all feel like we see a little glimpse of something I happen to believe it's heaven. Other people believe it's other things, but I think there's something very special and sacred about the moments surrounding death and as death occurs. And we need to take a holistic view of that privilege, but also we need to be caring for the person in a really all-encompassing way that helps them see the value of what they're headed for. This quote is from Pope Paul VI, and it's really very ecumenical. Somebody should tell us right at the start of our lives that we are dying. Then we might live life to the limit every minute of every day. Do it, I say. Whatever you want to do, do it now, because there are only so many tomorrows. And I think that's an important message, not only for people that are facing a terminal illness and for the loved ones of that person, but for every single one of us every day. We ought to be putting a little more gusto into every single day. I think COVID has taught us just how limiting our lives can be and how many surprises we've had. So don't leave things left unsaid or left undone. Dive in, absolutely. So what is person-centered care? Well, the more you know about the person, the better you're going to be able to center your care around that person's needs and wants and personality. We tell people when we're training them to care for those in memory care units, know at least 100 things about the person you're caring for when they're more healthy. When someone is dying, you should know 200 things about them. You should know as much about this person as you possibly can. And in very, very real ways, if you get the family talking about the person and really kind of extolling what their virtues were, what their strengths were, it gives them an opportunity to sort of start the grieving process in a very positive and loving way where you're comforting them in every step. We, of course, want to optimize and maximize the person's comfort. So you want to be prepared with the physical kinds of comfort and enhancing their quality of life. If hospice is involved, and we hope they would be, then we want to make sure that any pain is controlled, any other symptoms like shortness of breath. We want to make sure that they're positioned well and that they're turned and moved periodically so that they're not going to develop any skin breakdown or bed sores. We want to be looking toward anything that is going to make that person feel more comfortable, more loved, more safe. And the person may need some time to die on their own terms. It's amazing just how often people who are dying, who seem completely non-responsive and out of it, will wait until someone arrives, even if they didn't know they were coming, or they might wait until loved ones leave the room just for a moment in order to complete their life's journey and die alone. It really depends upon the individual, and we don't really have a way of predicting that, but respect that the person might. When you are talking with family and with the person who is seriously ill, remember not to impose your own personal beliefs. Find out what their beliefs are and then cater to that. You want to know their culture. You want to know how their ethnic group deals with death. There have been times when really brilliant and loving hospice nurses have known to open a window because that person's tradition needed to have a place for the spirit to exit the home. And we want to be culturally humble. Now, people ask me what that means. Cultural competency is one thing, knowing and understanding another's culture. But to be truly culturally humble, it means that you really understand that just because you have a belief or you have a way of adjusting and dealing with something, that's not always the best way or the right way. So cultural humility means we subjugate our own thoughts and we work on embracing what the individual and the family's needs and beliefs are for the period that we're caring for them. So we respect. We know what's going to calm the person down. We know how we're going to approach them. We know how the family needs to behave, and we're just a little more in tune. You want to spend time with the person. Don't make your visits quick. Don't be in a hurry. You want to make sure you employ loving touch, respectfully, and you want to ask permission. And everything you do for the person who's dying, especially if they're minimally responsive, ask permission, explain, tell them who you are. If you just leave the room and come back, tell them your name again and explain what you're planning to do. Talk with them, even if they can't respond to you. Tell them what's going on. Tell them it's a beautiful day outside. Tell them that their loved ones are coming in. Tell them that you have a cool compress you're going to put on their head. Tell them that you have lotion you're going to put on their hands. And then while you're rubbing it on their hands, talk to them about it. Say, this smells like lavender. I hope that you like that. We want to make sure your hands don't feel dry. But keep up a running narrative of what's going on. It will calm the person and it keeps them in connection, even if they can't respond. Spend time with this family. Don't be running in and out. In order to be very gentle and very intentional in this kind of care at this time, you have to downshift quite a bit. And if something would really only have taken you 15 minutes, plan on it taking you 30 or 45. Even if it's a care activity that needs to be done, slow down. Do the steps more deliberately. Do them with loving touch as you go. Have the family understand what you're doing so that they're not confused or worried. And while you're there, encourage them to talk about memories of the person. If they want to fluff the person's pillow, say, I bet she fluffed the pillow for you when you were sick. Or, try to tie in some of the activities so that it becomes very, very personal to them and they really feel like they are participating in this person's well-being. And listen to their pain. This can be really tough, but you want to listen for what they're saying and what they're not saying. And be patient with everyone and help them to be patient with the person who's dying. This process may take much more time than people are comfortable with. And we have to be the ones to let them know and to set the stage and to model the behavior that it's all right if it takes more time. You want to anticipate any difficult symptoms as well and be ready. I love the comfort packs that hospice often sends ahead of time. I love that people have pillowcases, satin pillowcases that are very soft and feel nice on the person, especially if they're hot or they're a little bit perspiring. You want to look for all kinds of tactile comforts that can really make this journey a little bit easier for the person. Now, I really hope that every patient and every person that you're going to help at this time of their life has completed an advanced healthcare directive and where appropriate has completed a POST document, because hoping for the best is not a good plan. And I think those of us who have been with the dying a lot recognize that the more planning and the more conversation that has taken place, the better the odds are that we're going to have a good death, a sacred death, a calm death, because the family will know what to expect and they won't be saying, oh, do something, she's dying. Yes, she's dying. And the something we're doing is going to help her through that process. If they don't have a POST document yet, then it's probably a good idea to ask either the hospice to help get that completed, or if you have been trained, you could have the conversation with the family, or you could ask a professional that's involved in the case who has POST training to initiate the conversation. the post can be completed by the family member that has power of attorney or is the agent named in their advanced healthcare directive. And we all know intrinsically that when somebody is dying, especially from end-stage dementia, the interventions we might do for a healthy person who experiences cardiac arrest are very different than for somebody who is at end-stage dementia or other end-stage disease. CPR is typically not going to help them much at all, and it might cause a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and drama that really isn't going to help create a beautiful death event. And other medical interventions, which we'll talk about in just a minute, really aren't necessarily going to provide benefit at this stage of their disease. So if the family fully understands that, then we're a little bit better off, because at end-stage dementia, all of these interventions can be very, very challenging. Things like feeding tubes. All the academic literature tells us that feeding tubes do not extend the life of the person with end-stage dementia, and in fact can cause more problems than they seek to solve. CPR, if you have a very debilitated individual who is at end-stage Alzheimer's type dementia especially, CPR is not going to bring them back to any level of functionality that will benefit them. And in the process, we're going to break some ribs, maybe break the sternum, and cause them a great deal of trauma for basically no potential benefit. So it's important that the family understand that as this person gradually, slowly gets to the moment of death, these interventions are not helpful. It's not like it is on TV. Another intervention that sometimes families worry about is artificial hydration. We know, based on a great deal of academic literature, that artificial hydration not only doesn't really extend the life of the person with end-stage dementia, but it actually can cause a fluid overload, more problems for the heart and pulmonary system, can cause ascites, that horribly painful buildup of fluid in the abdomen, can cause weeping if they already have some congestive heart failure, weeping of their legs and tissues. So it's not going to help them. And what would we would do much better to show families how to do comfort feeding, or comfortably give the person a teeny little taste of a popsicle that's melting, or maybe a teeny little bit of an ice chip just rubbed on their lips. Comfort kinds of measures. We won't stop doing these things, but we won't introduce these sometimes traumatic interventions that now we know are not going to provide any benefit. And certainly we know that mechanical ventilation, especially at end-stage dementia and at most end-stage disease, does not provide any kind of long-term benefit. What it means is that person probably has had to go back to the emergency department. It's going to spend time in the intensive care unit probably. And to what end? It may not extend their life for any period of time, and it certainly will cut down on their quality of life and the gentleness of a dying stage by introducing these really kind of traumatic interventions that we know just don't provide much benefit. This can be really hard to explain to families who are really hurting. And so it helps to be very familiar with what these interventions mean, where they could have been helpful for people with other kinds of diseases and at other stages of the disease. But at end-stage disease, these 11th hour heroic kinds of extraordinary measures really don't do anything but cause trauma. So in the United States, we are really a death-defying culture. It's kind of interesting that we don't recognize the fact that we're dying. Everything is centered on youth and beauty and vitality. And people can have vibrant aging and even vibrant dying. And I know it sounds funny to say dying with vitality, but you can do that provided you understand how to inject the gentleness to it. This is a natural process. And if we can embrace it and help families understand it, then we can make it a much, much better experience for everyone. And dying gives us the opportunity to really affirm who this person has been, what their life has meant to people. And I think oftentimes it's important for us as the professional caregivers to invite people to talk about what this person has meant, what their accomplishments have been, to really out loud affirm that person's life, who they have been to you, what they have meant in the family, and how they're going to miss them. I think it's really, really therapeutic to talk about the fact that this person has been central to our family construct, and be able to say, you know, how will things be after the death, and help people start to talk about that. The body, the mind, the spirit or soul of the person is really preparing to separate from this life and to cease activity. And sometimes it's hard for families to understand that the body is slowly, slowly, slowly shutting down. We can help them identify the signs and symptoms, things like modeling of the hands and extremities, things like changes in breathing, being cold or hot to the touch intermittently. Things like the person stopping speaking or sleeping more, all of these kinds of impending signals of death, if we point them out to the family and help them understand it, then they're not so afraid and they're not so uncomfortable with the process. So educating and supporting loved ones in what the process is about. And it's more than just giving them the blue booklet. It's walking through it. It's talking about it. It's asking, have they read the booklet? Do they have questions? What are their concerns? And sometimes you might get just a flood of information that you can help calm down. But if you don't ask, you won't know. You want to show them how to respond to the person and give them tasks so that they feel like they're participating in comfort. You may know exactly how to rub lotion on a person's hands and arms. Show them how to do it. You may know exactly how to help the person reposition. Show them how to do it. Show them how to give an ice chip or to swab the person's mouth. Let them participate as much as they're able and interested, and it will really help them feel a part of this process and not be so afraid or in denial of what's going on. It will help them. And for all faith traditions, there is a sacredness during this time that is the run-up to the actual death. So find out what's important for this family, what their denomination or their faith tradition feels is most important, and be ready. Another hospice nurse that I just loved, she was in a family where in their tradition, the person needed to be outdoors when they died. And she could tell that the patient was struggling and a little bit agitated and just couldn't relax and let death come. So bless her heart, she picked the person up in her arms and walked outside on the porch so the person could then gently expire. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And the family felt good about it. And certainly this person who was doing the dying was able to relax and allow their spirit to exit their body. I think it's really important to embrace this whole notion that while Alzheimer's and other dementias robs a person of their ability to participate in life as they once did and as people are accustomed to seeing, that person is not lost. And I think we need to reinforce that by speaking directly to the person, by acknowledging their humanity, by asking permission every time we're going to provide any kind of care activity, whether or not they can give assent. We want to go through the motions of asking for permission and speaking directly to that person and model behavior for the family so that they understand this person is with us until they are not. So we want the relationship to continue because death ends a life, but it doesn't end a relationship. And if they continue their relationship with this person all the way through the death event, then it might just ease their transition into mourning. I think it's important to consider that a lot of families are thinking about the person then, how they used to be, rather than how they are now. The person is still the person. The now self might not be able to respond, to communicate, might not be able to really take in what's going on around them. But that doesn't mean that they are no longer themselves. And I think this is an important concept for families to hear and to observe. If we interact with the person as if they were their same self that we respect, that could tell us what they wanted, then the family will do the same. So when family members say, I can't stand to see her like this, think about how you would respond. You can say things like, yes, I know this must be really hard for you. And I really want to make sure that your mom or your grandmother or your grandpa knows that you're here and that while it's hard for you to be here while you're seeing this illness take place and while you're watching them gradually decline toward death, it's really important that you be here to support them. So even though they're saying something negative, turn it into a positive. If he says something like, he doesn't even know I am here, say, absolutely wrong. Of course they know you're here. They may not be able to acknowledge it, but deep inside, they can feel your touch. They hear your voice. They smell your scent or your perfume. If you're close to them and snuggling, they feel that. They know their energy will respond to yours. So dispel this notion of he doesn't even know I'm here. And I hear this one a lot. She wouldn't want us to see her this way. Well, perhaps not, but she is this way and she needs you now. And so even though this may have been uncomfortable for her to have lost her ability to connect with you the way you're accustomed, we will find this new way for you to connect. Reassure her as she is getting ready for death. Disabuse them of that notion. Why must we let this linger on and on like this? Well, Mother Nature has a plan and a recipe for every single individual's death. We can't determine it. It's something that the person, their body, their spirit has to go through whatever work they're doing. And it's not so much that they're lingering on, it's that their body and their spirit is marking the time in their own way. So we have to help them with this because the person for whom it's most uncomfortable is the person watching. And so we have to help them change that focus on what they're feeling and what bothers them to what can we do to make this person more comfortable. And if they say, isn't there a way to end this sooner? We have to say, well, this is like a birth. This is like waking up in the morning. Everybody has to do it their own way. And no, there isn't a way we can end this sooner. Sometimes people say, well, if you give her the morphine, won't that end it sooner? Help them understand that if they are on hospice and they're receiving morphine, it's not to end it sooner. It's to ease the symptoms like some agonal breathing or shortness of breath. It's to help calm them down. It's not to help them transition to death more hastily. We don't want to hasten death. We want this process to be whatever that person's death timetable needs to be. And we may need to help people understand that. Family members are dealing with this constellation of emotions, and sometimes they erupt almost like a volcano. They're angry, they're afraid, they're sad, they're probably exhausted and emotionally overwrought. So understand that they may say things that sound kind of selfish or unkind or impatient. We have to be very gentle with them too and help them understand that they're going through something difficult, and the person who's doing the dying is going through something difficult, and this journey is better done together. So help them, and I think education about the process helps them get over that fear. Talking about the person, supporting who this person has meant, that helps them let their sadness come out in the open. And I do think it helps with emotional exhaustion. If they can just acknowledge, yes, I am exhausted, I am so sad, and help them with that. It's better if they acknowledge it. Look around the room. Pardon me. What is the patient's view? Now, if you think the patient is so obtunded they can't see anything, take another look, because they may not open their eyes and see everything, but they will feel it. So is there light coming in? Is it light that's diffused so it's not shining in their eyes? Perhaps the lights could be dimmed a little bit. Is there space for the family to sit? You may not want the family sitting on the bed, so make sure that there's a place for the family to be comfortable. Is there an opportunity for privacy? If you have to perform some care on that patient, changing Depends or changing their clothes or giving them a bed bath, make sure that there's adequate opportunities so that the person's dignity and privacy can be respected. Just because they're dying doesn't mean they wouldn't want some of those care activities done in a very respectful and private way. Make sure they have on, nice pajamas or something that would feel good to be in. I'll tell a personal story. My mother died last year. Bless her heart, she was 97. And it wasn't an unexpected death, but it was still hard. And I got to see her the day before she died. And this is in the midst of COVID, so we had all those restrictions. But the hospice caregivers, bless their hearts, they knew my mother well enough that before she died, she was put into her most beautiful satin pajamas, and her hair was combed. And I know that they had brushed her teeth, and all the things that would have been very important to her were done for her. So make sure that the family has brought something that would be comfortable and nice for the person to be in. You want the person to feel clean and comfortable, and you want them to be attractive, clean, smelling nicely, hairbrushed, because that makes it easier for the family to get close to them and to give them a kiss or to snuggle or to touch them. If the person is not smelling good or looks terrible, that can be off-putting for family, and it's not their fault. So help them out with this. I was with a family at one point, and I was sitting 11th hour vigil. And when the lady died, I let the staff at the board and care home know, and they came in, and bless their hearts, they combed her hair a little bit, and they put on this awful color of orange frost lipstick that I would never wear in life, never mind in death. And I said, "Oh, are you sure you want to do that? Her son's going to be here in just a couple of minutes." They said, "Oh no, we want her to look pretty." I said, "Okay." Well, when that son came in, he said, "Oh, she looks beautiful." And then I happened to see a picture, and she had worn that orange frost lipstick most of her life. So speak to the person as if they can hear and understand you, explain what's going on, ask permission, privacy, and treat them as if they were completely aware. Think about what you would want for yourself or for your loved one. And for those of you who know St. Teresa or Mother Teresa from Calcutta, do small things, but with great love. So we've talked a lot about these kinds of interventions, things that can soothe the person, gentle massage, making sure the lighting is nice, making sure that the room smells nice, use lavender aromatherapy in particular, use things that are going to make the room seem inviting and pleasant, music, sometimes white noise is good. Sometimes a weighted blanket can be very, very soothing. And sometimes just snuggling and whispering to the person. Sometimes prayer is very important, or singing a lullaby can be helpful. Invite the family to tell you what would be comforting or what the person may have done in life to comfort someone else. And you can take your cues from there. People worry about being clean as they die. They worry about pain and they worry about personal cleanliness. So pay attention to that. Make sure that their pain is controlled. Make sure that you're keeping them clean and feeling fresh. Sometimes people who are more aware as they're getting toward death might have some depression or anxiety. And that's where medications might be able to help. They are withdrawing from the living. So families need to understand that even if they were talking yesterday, maybe they don't want to talk today. It's part of the process. Make sure that you have supported them with whatever their spiritual tradition would indicate. For people that have a Christian faith tradition, people that are Catholic, they want the sacrament of the sick. They might want to have Holy Communion if they're still able to do so. Other faith traditions might want scripture read, might want praise songs to be heard. People may be struggling with this leaving of this life and what their existence has meant and what their contribution to the world has been. So help to reinforce how important their life has been and what they have meant to people. Family members will remember the last days and hours and moments of their loved one's life. So we have this opportunity to create sacred space and to have those memories be positive and to reinforce the love and the care people have had and to help get them over humps of resentment or where forgiveness may not have been offered in the ways they might have liked to. If they articulate that they have forgiven, if they tell the person that they love them, if they give them permission to die, it can go a long way toward easing how their mourning is going to be. We want to remember the stories of the person dying and help families repeat them and talk about them and help them then in this transition because they're going through it too. This is very holistic care. It must be individualized. Every death is going to be different. Every person is going to be as individual as their fingerprint. And so we want to focus on what will provide comfort at each interaction. It's a privilege. If you believe in an afterlife, as I do, it's a privilege to be there when the window of heaven opens up a little bit. And no matter what you believe about afterlife, this is a marvelous transition. And so we should respect it at our core. Help families understand everything that's happening at each interaction with each care opportunity. Tell the family what you're doing, get permission from the person that you're providing the care to, and help families model your behavior. If they see you do something, they're going to be more comfortable doing it too. Gentleness, loving care,
gentleness. Death should be gentle, and not all deaths are. But if we inject gentleness into the equation, perhaps we can help to calm things down. And then remember to take care of yourself. It's not easy to do these things for people. There's great reward and it's a rare privilege, but it does take a toll. And so remember to take care of yourself well and to allow yourself to relax and debrief and sort of de-escalate from whatever the stresses might have been from the death. You have to take care of more people, and so take good care of yourself. Well, I think we can take a lesson from Dame Cicely Saunders. She was the founder of modern hospice care. Many of you know her work, have read the things that she has written, and have followed her thoughts. She was a social worker, a nurse, and then became a physician so that she could administer palliative care to people. And she founded the St. Christopher Hospice in London and really brought us to a modern understanding of how we could care for people well. And she said, because you matter because you are you. You matter to the very last moment of life. And we will do all we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. I think that's such a beautiful way to end our proceedings today. You'll have these handouts, so you'll get to see the references. I want to credit the LNEC project for wonderful training and allowing us to use some of their information. Also, Dr. Megory Anderson, the late Dr. Megory Anderson from the Sacred Dying Foundation, and Dr. Ira Byock, who really have influenced a great deal of what we have done here today. And I think we have time for a couple of questions.
We do indeed, Patty. Thank you so much. That is just such a valuable topic, and you're an excellent speaker. So if anyone has questions for Patty, be sure to type them into the question box. And while we're waiting just a minute for that, I just want to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors once again: O'Connor Mortuary, Caring Companions at Home, Care Choices, Hospice and Palliative Care, Palliative Service, Alzheimer's Orange County, and of course our community partner Hoag. Before we go into the questions, I also want to mention our webinar for next month, which will take place on Tuesday, November 9th, and it is COPD, a hidden health threat, and we will have Michael Hess, who is the Senior Director of Public Outreach and Education for the COPD Foundation. And of course, COPD stands for Chronic Obstructive Pulmonary Disease. So that'll be a great topic as well. So let me go ahead and go into the question box at this time and see what we have in there.
Yeah, someone wants to know, what is the Blue Book? Kathleen would like to know.
Oh, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's most
Gone from my site.
Gone from my site. Thank you, Kim. And it details the symptoms and signs of impending death. And it's a really great little booklet, but it needs conversation with it. So most hospice agencies give them to the family, and they're a really wonderful, helpful tool. And many of us just call it the Blue Book, but it's Gone from my site.
Kim, should I ask the next one?
Yeah, keep going, because I'm just having difficulty with.
You'll find it.
Yeah. Go ahead,
right.
Michelle. Thanks.
All right. Gary wants to know which specific culture likes to have the window open for the soul to travel through, or to die outside.
I have seen that more in Hindu culture, and sometimes in Buddhist culture, where there needs to be a pathway for the soul to leave.
Okay, interesting. Dora Lane wants to know, how do you help with families who are truly in denial about their loved one's condition?
Well, I usually start by asking them what they understand about what's going on with the person's illness and disease process. And I say things like, what have the doctors told you? What do you understand about them being on hospice care? What kinds of questions do you have about how this is going? And sometimes as they start talking, they actually inform themselves of the seriousness. I use a phrase like, your mother is very ill. What do you understand about it? And sometimes that helps to get the conversation going. And they may say, well, I don't really know. And then you can kind of take a step back and say, well, she's had serious cancer. She's had chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation, and that hasn't stopped the cancer. So how do you think things are progressing? And get them talking. And sometimes you uncover areas that they really don't understand. And so by explaining that gently and letting them come to you with some of their questions, then it makes it a little bit easier to get past that denial.
All right, thank you. The next question is from Carol. What are some tips on working with difficult family members during the last hours of a patient's life?
Well, it depends upon how difficult they are and what their difficulties are. If they are really nervous and agitated and loud, model the behavior, lower your voice, dim the lights, turn the music down, invite them to have quiet time. And you might actually, I mean, it sounds a little bit juvenile, but you might say, I think it might be a good time for us all to just be quiet around your mom. So let's take 10 minutes and just have quietness, and everybody just breathe deeply, and that will help your mother with her agitation. Give them some specific tasks to do that might also kind of bring down the level of anxiety for them too. If they're really behaving badly, then see if you have a family champion, somebody who is reasonable and who does understand what's going on. And you might ask them to invite family members, perhaps to go outside and take a little break and let you perform some private caregiving activities. And then they can all come back in, give everybody a chance to calm down. If they continue being disruptive, then you might say, you know, I think it's a good idea if we just have one person in the room at a time. So how about if, who would like to be here right now? And then if you just have one person in the room, you might be able to instruct them and say, see how I'm doing this? Come and help me. You can rub the lotion on her hands, or here, we can help, we can gently brush her hair. And I like to have, not props, but tools. A baby brush, a baby's hairbrush with those soft bristles. I think every death should have a baby brush. Show the person who's being difficult how to gently brush the person's hair. It will calm them down, and it will provide a tactile, loving stimulation to the person who's dying.
That's so nice. I don't know, Kim, do you want to mention that it's been a full hour before I go to the next question?
Yes, we're at 12:30 now, so we'll take maybe one or two more questions. And if people need to leave now, they can. You'll get your survey in your email. Those that stay on will receive their survey once we close the webinar. So let's take a couple more questions. How many do we have, Michelle? Do we have just a few more?
Quite a few.
Oh,
quite
boy.
a few. You just let me know when to stop.
Okay.
Andrea wants to know, she says, can we talk about the POLST, P-O-L-S-T form? I'm not a paid caregiver and would like more information about this versus an advanced directive.
Sure. It's probably not enough time to really go into the POLST document. I believe we have a webinar recorded in our YouTube library on the POLST document, or stay tuned because, Kim, this may be an opportunity for something we can do sometime in the next few months to do a refresher on the POLST. Happy to do that.
Just as a reminder for everyone, you can access our virtual library on YouTube, or you can just go to our website at www.alzoc.org.
And the POLST is really only for people who are seriously ill and where no one would be surprised if they died in the next year. It is something that is used on top of or as an extension after the advance directive that gives very specific, detailed requests about the interventions a person would or would not want. And it becomes a medical legal order.
All right, Candace. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Kim?
Only that I think we'll talk to Melissa, but I think it'd be great to do another POLST webinar. I'm getting a little message from Laura on that as well. So thank you,
Sure.
Patty. Yeah.
Candace says, I'm a caregiver for my mom with FTD, 8 years. How will I know if she's going into end stage? How do I prepare myself for something I'm not ready for? She's only 65.
Oh, that's a very hard job you're doing. And frontotemporal dementia is a particularly difficult form of dementia. You'll know if she's getting more toward end stage, if she's less interested in food, if she starts to sleep more, if she stops talking much, if her activity level starts to really, really decline. And you'll probably notice that several months before she actually transitions toward death. You can ask the doctor, how do her other vital signs look? How is her health overall? It can be complicated if she also has cardiac issues or lung issues or kidney disease. So ask the doctor how she's doing in all those other areas. And then as you watch her want to be less and less involved in activities, falling asleep more, then you'll start to know that she's in a more significant decline.
We've had a couple of people ask if the webinar will be available for viewing again and where it is. Would you remind me, Kim, under what menu it's on the Alzheimer website?
Absolutely. It won't be available immediately, but very soon. And all of our webinars are listed on our website. Once again, as the page opens, you'll see a button that says virtual education, and you just tap on that, and all of our webinars appear in our virtual library. So we invite everyone to take advantage of that. And as Patty mentioned, they can also be found on our YouTube channel. So I'm just wondering if let's take one or two more questions, and then I'm thinking that some of these questions can be answered by our helpline, and some we may have to reserve for Patty. Patty, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, let's take one or two more,
Okay.
and then we're going to have to end.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but Rizalina, can families revoke hospice care at the last minute?
Oh my goodness.
Sure, yes, absolutely. You can revoke hospice care whenever you like, but it should only be done by the person who has the medical power of attorney for the patient. So, that's something that you should really have discussed well ahead of time and under what circumstances you might want to revoke it. If the person is suffering from end-stage dementia, even if you revoke hospice and call 911 and ship them off to the emergency department, you're probably not going to change the trajectory of the disease. And what you will do is really just disrupt a gentle dying process. But you certainly can do that.
All right, this will be the last one, I guess. How do you advise, Cynthia, how do you advise dealing with medical staff who don't share much information?
Oh, well, I think that's sometimes a common problem because oftentimes the clinical professionals are really pressed for time. So what I have done that works well is I let the doctor know, if it's a physician, and I say, you know, I know you're very busy right now. When could we talk so that we're not in such a hurry? When would be a good time? May I call you? Or could you come back when you're not so pressed to get to the next patient? And sometimes that's a little bit of a wake-up call and they realize that they're rushing through things. And sometimes they say, thank you for asking, and I'll come back this afternoon after 4 o'clock when I'm finished seeing the rest of my patients. So give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not meaning to be so rushed, and let them know that you need a little bit more time and that you have some questions and you need their help with understanding.
Okay, well, this brings us to the webinar conclusion, and thank you again so much, Patty. It was a great presentation. We appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us. And for everyone online, please watch for the survey that will open up immediately when I end the webinar for everyone. It will also be emailed to you 1 hour after the webinar ends, and be sure to fill out and complete this survey within 24 hours. We really rely on your feedback to continually make improvements to our programs, and it is required if you are asking for CE credits. Again, watch for our flyer for our next webinar on COPD, and don't forget you can visit our website. I just put that address along with the number for our helpline into the chat so you can learn more about our education programs and webinars, and to view past recordings of our webinars that we've had in the past for free, although you can't earn CE credits for those. Thank you all and have a great day, and we'll see you next month.